Good afternoon. In this video I want to show you how the Declaration of Independence, which is based on biblical principles, by the way. John Locke got these principles. Jefferson got his principles from John Locke. John Locke got his principles from the Bible. But I want to show you how the Declaration of Independence and the Bill of Rights and the Declaration of Independence are supportive of one another. The Constitution. Or against any lockdown state. Every lockdown state is at war with the Constitution and the bill and the principles of the Declaration of Independence, and thereby, for all intents and purposes, is not a just government. No government has the right to arbitrarily destroy another man's life at the expense of someone else. We're protecting someone else's life. We're going to destroy your life. Remember, this whole thing started in order to get ahead of a curve. It's supposed to be 2 weeks, then went to 4 weeks. And unfortunately, Trump used the war metaphor. We're going to be at war with this virus. We're going to defeat the war. Well, we won the war. In 4 weeks, we got ahead. We got the logistics, everything done. But now people have taken the war metaphor. That's why you don't use these war metaphors lightly. War on poverty, war on drugs. They never end. Orwell's 1984 said a perpetual war for perpetual peace, because that's how governments love war. Because people, in communist nations, they're always under a state of a war. They always have the outside fighting the outside people. But the Declaration of Independence, which Jefferson wrote, and by the way, the Confederacy wasn't a legitimate revolution, because you notice they didn't write any declaration and list of abuses, because they couldn't do it. But the colonists could list the abuses and state that's why the British government was in revolt against their own unwritten constitution of British subjects. And the Sons of Liberty in the British Constitution, in the British Parliament, recognized that, led by Edmund Burke, as I said before. And I forget it wasn't Edmund Burke who actually said that. It was another individual, Isaac Bear. It was Isaac Bear who said that the British government was in revolt against the colonists, and actually they were actually rooting for the Americans to win. Yeah, Isaac Bear, wasn't Edmund Burke. But and so when in the course of human events it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with another, and to assume among the powers of the earth the separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and of nature's God entitle them, a decent respect to the opinions of mankind requires that they should declare the causes which impel them to that separation. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they endow with their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. When governments are telling you your business is not essential, you're destroying your right to pursue happiness. When they say you can't travel, it's the pursuit of happiness being destroyed on the arbitrary whim of one man, a governor, who's listening to some health guy. That to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. That whenever any form of government becomes destructive to these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it, and to institute new government, laying its foundations on such principles and organize its power in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. Prudence, indeed, will dictate that governments long established should not be changed for light and transient causes. So you're patient. People are patient on these things. But these governments are locked down. Oregon, New York, Illinois, California. Just drag them out, destroying 100,000 businesses being destroyed in New York. For what purpose? What purpose? And it's just arbitrary, capricious. And as they go to the courts are knocking them down. But they're using it as an excuse as this virus. Well, people can die for viruses. The situation switched from getting ahead of the curve, getting logistics to hospitals ready. The hospitals are collapsing now because they're not getting support from elective surgeries. This is why we don't have a king. This is why we don't have one-man rule. And these governors are ruling in these states as one-man rule. There's no check and balances. Should not be changed for light and transient causes. Accordingly, all experience has shown that mankind are more disposed to suffer, while evils are sufferable, to right themselves by abolishing the forms in which they are accustomed. But when a long train of abuses and usurpations, pursuing inevitably the same object, evinces a design to reduce them to under absolute despotism, it is their right, it is their duty, for their future security, such as been the patient sufferings of these colonies, and such as now the necessity which constrains them to alter their former system of government. Now, does that mean should be people being revolted against these particular states? No, but they have a right to be. The police should not be supporting the states. And you're seeing police departments say, no, we're not going to enforce these laws. These states are out of line. Every state, including Texas, have it. Dragging its feet. Every state should immediately be opened immediately. Under the Constitution. Under the Constitutional rights, Bill of Rights. And when they didn't, they themselves became illegal governments. Immoral governments. Under the guise of saying, we're protecting you from a virus. You can't protect one group of people at the expense of another group of people. You can't take the rights of one group of people away in order to protect another group of people. Now, this is very important for Christians to understand what the issue of revolution is. Governments have limits. And when they go over those limits, people can be long-suffering, but that doesn't mean the government has a right to do what they're doing. It just means that the people are long-suffering under those situation. But here we have governments, state governments, local governments, mayors, who have become power mad and are destroying man's freedom. Just constitutional rights. Of course, the ACLU, you don't see ACLU anywhere. That shows how phony they are. They're not concerned about anybody's freedom. They're concerned about an agenda, pushing a left-wing agenda. But in a moral sense, anybody who resists these lockdowns is totally legitimate. These lockdowns have no moral authority. They have no biblical authority. And the people imposing them, arbitrary and capricious, and judges are striking them down as they come through the courts and saying this is arbitrary and capricious. We didn't elect officials to be our doctors. We elected officials to protect the Constitution. They take an oath to the Constitution. Now, in certain extreme cases, you can suspend certain things during an emergency, but they're very limited. They're not meant to go on and on and on at the whim of any particular person, individual. That's where checks and balances come in, legislatures come in, and then courts come in and say no. And ultimately, if the courts fail and the legislature fail, then the individuals have to look at their own situation, decide what course they're going to take. To continue to obey, which they don't have to, or to ignore the law. This is not a law. Actually, none of these are laws, but these are dictates. Arbitrary, capricious dictates under one-man rule in these governorships. Using the guise of, well, we have for the greater good. We have some people. We got to take people from dying And under that excuse, they think they can violate your actual God-given freedoms. They can't. So I just wanted to show you what the issue is here. And the fact we're seeing this in the United States is very unnerving. Very sobering. None of these states had a right to have stages in reopening. Their closing down was for 2 weeks. For supposed to be 2 weeks, and then we had an additional 2 weeks in order to get ahead of the curve. And that was it. And then the idea was, okay, we turn it back over to states. But the idea of the states should say, okay, now everything's reopened. Because they have no constitutional right to keep anything closed. So all these states that are keeping other businesses closed are in violation of their oath to the Constitution. And are essentially immoral. And unethical. And the courts are going to strike them down. But the Constitution was created and along with the Bill of Rights. They're not subject to if something happens, we'll give you freedom of speech. If something happens, we'll give you a Second Amendment. If something happens, unless something doesn't happen, then we'll give you. They're unconditional. Second Amendment's unconditional. First Amendment's unconditional. Fourth Amendment's all these amendments are unconditional. It's like putting somebody back in slavery. It's unconditional. You can't put somebody back in slavery. It's the 13th Amendment. It's illegal. Well, we got a problem here. Let's put people back in slavery. So I just want to put this up. God, Christians might be confused on this issue. This is why we have a federal system of government, checks and balances, and none of these tyrants and these governorships are being checked. And by this is duplicated in the American Revolution. Those governors were being appointed by the British, and the legislatures were from the colonies. And the governors were obeying the king and not the legislatures. They wouldn't listen to the legislatures. And they wanted to have trial by juries. They were going to send the juries back, the persons who are for trial back to Britain to be tried, not by trial by jury by their peers. Because they were afraid of jury nullification, which was happening. The American colonists said, they don't consider that a law. So they go to court. Nah, it's not a law. And they nullify it and say, not guilty. So, in these times, watch, people who are talking about the Constitution and versus the crisis. And people using the crisis in order to expand their power in violation of what the Constitution says. Every state under lockdown that kept the lockdown after the emergency was considered over, was passed back to the states, was in violation of the Constitution. And I said that including Governor Abbott, Texas governor. Everybody's praising him. It's no different than the rest of them. And I've written to him and told him that. No one has a right to say what's essential business, not essential, as long as it's legal. As long as it's legal business, you have no right to say what's essential or not essential. You're destroying a man's life without due process. Do you realize that, people? They're destroying people's lives without due process. Would you just brush in the hand? That's what the Constitution is to protect people from. New businesses aren't going to start up again because they'll always be in fear now they can be shut down at the whim of any dictator who assumes governorship and declares himself, declares emergency. So Christians have to look at it. Christians have responsibilities to look at the role of the United States as citizens. What our role as citizens and what the role of government. What is the role of power and authority. So I just want to put this up real quick and explain. None of these governors are getting up there and bringing up the Constitution. Except for South Dakota. They kept open. That woman in South Dakota, the governor wrote the Constitution. I don't have the constitutional right to close the state. And she was right. She was absolutely right. You can't pick out when a business is essential or not essential. Who are you? Those businesses are legitimate businesses. And every legitimate business has a right to survive based on pursuit of happiness. And every governor is essentially at war with its own people in that state. And therefore the people have no responsibility, or moral responsibility, to obey anything the government says. It's not them who are immoral in disobedience who be the governor. The governors and mayors are immoral and are unethical. And at war. See, they use the war metaphor. We're supposed to hit war with the virus, not your own people. And that's what they're war. They're war with their own people. Destroying their own people. Destroying the states. And so a Christian has no moral responsibility to obey any of these guys. Now, practically, you do, based on what the issues, the punishments are, and other issues. But in a moral sense, any Christian who rejects it and takes whatever action he deemed feasible is not immoral. Now again, there's always short of violence because of long suffering. But if this continued to an indefinite period, this would lead to that type of rebellion. And that's why the Second Amendment was put in. The Second Amendment wasn't put in for hunting people or personal self-defense. It was put in for situations just like this. As last resort. And that's what Thomas Jefferson was writing about. Why, he said, men have to resort to arms. When things get so bad, it's over 20 years, things get so bad, they can't go on this way. And men have to decide when they've gotten to that point. But as of now, it's the governors of every state who, under the guise of protecting one group of people, are destroying the freedoms of another group of people. When their responsibility is to protect all people, the rights and freedoms of all people. Amen. Thank you.